back in the States from the land of square watermelons and robotic toilets. This is John bringing you this week's AnimeNation news podcast. I have to say with some lament that I am back in America, because although it's certainly nice to be back in my daily routine once again, it's a little bit saddening for me to be now away from the magical world of Tokyo. And I do call it a world because although Tokyo is one large city, it feels like a self-contained tiny little planet in and of itself. I certainly highly recommend a visit there for any of you anime and manga otaku that have never been to Tokyo before and are interested in going. The city is unlike any other large city in the world, and I've been to many of them. I've actually visited on multiple occasions. London, New York, Sydney, Singapore, for example. Each of those cities has its own unique character and its own characteristics, but none of them feel exactly like Tokyo does. For those of us that are used to anime, we're very familiar with the idea that at any given moment, aliens could invade, giant monsters could come up out of the ground, spaceships could land, or some unexplained event may happen. Tokyo inspires so much anime of that ilk because the city genuinely does feel that way. When you happen to walk around Tokyo, it really does feel like a city filled with unlimited potential. Furthermore, the city does feel like it's filled with unlimited opportunities. I really do think that certainly everyone gets used to certain circumstances, but if you can possibly feel bored in Tokyo, then I think that you've lost the spirit of living itself. The city is magnificent in the sense that it's really designed around satisfying your every possible desire and whim. No matter what kind of food you want, it's within about a 5-minute walk. If you need any type of entertainment, whether it be video games, or gambling, or dancing, or drinking, or even sex, it's within roughly 10 minutes. The city is designed to accommodate every desire, every need. The city is designed to be completely convenient, completely user-friendly. If a computer were a city, it would be Tokyo. The city, in that sense, really is just tremendously enjoyable and wonderful to be in. If you've ever experienced a situation when you thought, I wish life would be like this, wouldn't it be nice if people were more courteous? Wouldn't it be nice if this place I needed to go to was closer? Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to drive? Wouldn't it be nice if the city of Tokyo actually satisfies those desires? Which is why, although it's not the most inexpensive city to visit, it is one of the most convenient. Furthermore, even if you don't speak any Japanese whatsoever, the city is very, very flexible, very, very amenable to foreign speakers, especially English language speakers. So I tremendously enjoyed my time there. I spent 2.5 weeks and didn't even see most of the city because I spent most of my time in very particular locations doing the things that I enjoy most. But there's so much to offer that in 2 weeks I saw very, very little actually. So I hope to go back, and I sincerely hope that all of you listening have an opportunity at some point to visit Tokyo. In the immediate future, if you don't happen to be visiting Tokyo, at least you can keep up with what's going on in Tokyo and the anime coming out of the city towards us, including an announcement that Yu Mamoroshi's light novel series, Kusan Madoshi Kousei no Kyokan, will be getting an anime adaptation. We don't know what type of anime yet, but this is the sort of franchise that lends itself towards a television series. This light novel series loosely translated as Aerial Combat Wizard Candidate's Instructor, launched in July of 2013, and its fourth light novel actually just hit Japanese bookstores 2 days ago. It's a story set in a futuristic Earth in which humans have migrated into floating islands because most of the surface planet and a lot of the air has been taken over and is now controlled by large magical bugs, large vicious magical insects. So the titular character is a disgraced former expert swordsman who now must train 4 misfit girls in order to go out and fight these vicious magical bugs. I'm sure plenty of you will be excited and thrilled to know that Akira Toriyama is now developing a new Dragon Ball Z movie. Given the success of last year's Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods motion picture, Akira Toriyama is now writing and producing character designs for a new sequel film. The film will be set after Battle of the Gods, however, may not be a sequel in the strict sense that Beerus will be returning. It will be a sequel in continuity, so it will be set after the events of last year's Battle of Gods movie. Akira Toriyama seems apparently to be very pleased with the way this script is developing, and he promises that this movie, due out next year, will have more comedy and more action than last year's movie did. Which is certainly good news, because the Battle of Gods movie was a nice reminder, a nice resurrection of Dragon Ball. However, especially in terms of action content and in terms of the intensity of the action, compared to the earlier 13 Dragon Ball Z movies, Battle of Gods was a little bit lacking. So hearing that the 2015 movie will be much more exciting is certainly good news that we can look forward to. A variety of franchises have announced new OAD episodes. High School DD will be getting its first OAD. It has had 2 television series and an OVA, but Ichie Ichibume's High School DD DX1 light novel that's coming up on March 10th, 2015, will be released with the series' first OAD episode. This will probably coincide loosely with the premiere of the 3rd season of the High School DD television series. Yamada-kun to Ichichinin no Majo will be getting its second OAD. Actually, in Japan, the first OAD came out yesterday? Actually, maybe the day before yesterday. The first OAD came out this week in Japan with the 13th collected volume of Miki Yoshikawa's novel series, manga series. The 17th collected volume of the manga will be released on May 15th of next year, and that will include the second OAD from the Yamada and the Seven Witches franchise. The series, which is not very well known in America yet, but probably will be becoming a little bit better known, is a story about a high school boy and 7 witches at his high school who end up body swapping. Now, you might say that this sounds exactly like Tayu Tayu from a year ago. But actually it's not Tayu Tayu, was it? Sorry. I mentioned before I have a problem with titles. It's the other show that came out the same season as Tayu Tayu that was very, very similar. But while that was a drama, Yamada to Shichingen no Maho is much more of a slapstick comedy. Prism Ilya will be getting its second OAD episode. The 6th volume of Type Moon and Hiroshi Hirayama's Fate Colleague Liner Prism Ilya Dre manga will be released on April 25th, 2015. That will include the second Prisma Ilya OAD. Prisma Ilya had its first OAD episode released with the 4th collected volume of the manga last March, Last year, Prism Ilia had a television series, the second Prisma Ilia television series, a spin-off from the Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero continuity, actually premiered last week. So the second television series is currently streaming on Crunchyroll. Shueisha has announced the movies that will be screening in this year's Jump Festa promotional tour. The Jump Special Anime Festa, as what it's called this year, will hit 6 Japanese cities this November, and it will exclusively screen anime movies based on Ansatsu Kyoshitsu, or Assassination Classroom, Blood Blockade Battlefront, Gintama, Haikyuu, Naruto Shippuden, and World Trigger. Many of those have had short movies before, or have had anime before. Ansatsu Kyoshitsu got its first event anime last year, and will be getting an anime television series this coming January. Blood Blockade Battlefront will be getting its first anime in the form of this short half-hour-long feature. Gintama has had a number of anime feature films, TV series, and event films before. Haikyuu is the current high school volleyball anime television series. This will be its first feature, although this will only be a half-hour long, and will not be theatrical per se. Naruto has had a number of Jump Festa movies before, and World Trigger has an anime coming up. And World Trigger is a relatively new sci-fi adventure manga, so this will probably be its first anime adaptation. The Jump Festa tour this year will premiere in Tokyo, Sapporo, Sendai, Osaka, Nagoya, and Fukuyama from November 9th till 16th this year. In positive domestic news, Disney has confirmed that the Kaguya-hime no Monogatari, or Tale of Princess Kaguya motion picture from Studio Ghibli, will hit limited, and I mean very limited, American theatrical release on October 17th. This means that it will probably play in Los Angeles and New York in order to qualify for year-end awards nomination consideration. This means that the movie will probably hit major widespread American theatrical release in early 2015. But the American English dub will star Chloe Grace Moritz, who starred in the Carrie remake and the 2 Kick-Ass movies, and will also star the voices of James Caan, Mary Steenburgen, Darren Criss, Lucy Liu, Beau Bridges, James Marsden, Oliver Platt, and Dean Cain. This film, based on the Japanese Taketori Monogatari, or Bamboo Cutter's Tale fairy tale, is possibly the final film from Isao Takahata and is the next to most recent Ghibli film. The most recent Ghibli film actually doesn't hit Japanese theaters until next week, but that will be Omoide no Marnie, or Marnie was here. So technically speaking, this would be the most recent Ghibli film, but in a week it will be the next 2 most recent Ghibli film. In further domestic news, Warner has hired Dante Harper to write another draft of its live-action Akira movie concept. The latest word from a year or 2 ago is that this might be a movie franchise, but there's still no certainty about that. But Dante Harper primarily came to name recognition as the initial screenwriter who adapted the All You Need Is Kill light novel into a script for Edge of Tomorrow. That script, originally by Dante Harper, was then rewritten several times, but the original screenwriter Dante Harper has now been assigned to tweak and rewrite a draft for Warner Brother, Appian Way, and Mad Chance's production of a, at least tentative, American Akira movie. Furthermore, Jaume Collet-Serra, the director of the Liam Neeson action movies Unknown and Nonstop, is back in the director's chair once again. Khaled Serra was the, I believe I'm going to say, third director attached to the film back in 2012, but back in 2012, Warner Brothers shut down pre-production of its live-action Akira movie, wanting script revisions and wanting the budget to be reduced. So at that time, Khaled Serra left the production in order to work on other films. However, now that Warner Brothers is ramping up production again, Khaled Serra is back once again, working on the live-action tentative American Akira movie. In terms of domestic anime releases, this past week, Aniplex America released a number of American versions / imports. Aniplex released the Anohana motion picture in your choice of Blu-ray, DVD, or limited edition DVD Blu-ray combo that includes a soundtrack CD. They released the first volume of Kill La Kill, similarly in a limited edition DVD Blu-ray combo, and also in standard DVD edition and Blu-ray separate editions. The Gurren Lagann movies were re-released in America by Aniplex, this time for the first time on Blu-ray as a double feature. The Madoka Magica first two out of so far 3 motion pictures are available for the first time in America, now on separate DVD or as a DVD Blu-ray double feature. And Aniplex America this past week released the complete first season of Gin no Saji, or Silver Spoon, in a subtitled DVD edition. Funimation this week released its 11th volume of Fairy Tail and a DVD Blu-ray combo pack. Sentai Filmworks this past week released the complete first season of Majestic Prince in both DVD and Blu-ray formats, and released the 3rd season of the To Love Ru television series, To Love Ru Darkness, on Blu-ray. New Video, aka Senegon, this past week released Mononoke in a 2-disc subtitled DVD collection. They also released the complete Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters television series in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Complete Classic edition. I believe that this is a 32-disc set that includes all 5 seasons of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Masters television series. It also includes the Yu-Gi-Oh! 3D Bonds Beyond Time motion picture. If you've already purchased the 5 seasons, you can also purchase the Yu-Gi-Oh! 3D Bonds Beyond Time motion picture separately on your choice of DVD or Blu-ray. Since I just returned from Tokyo a little over a week ago, I have not picked up any new anime releases. Some of these I'm hoping to pick up, providing my funds hold out. I spent a lot of money in Tokyo, folks. Some good releases here. Anohana, if you've been on the fence about it, the movie might be the way to go, because the movie is a condensed retelling of the television series. Then again, if you already have the television series, you might decide to forego the movie. Kill La Kill is expensive, but as with many Aniplex releases, I would call it worth it. Kill La Kill is one of the most creative, unique, kinetic, and exciting anime productions in the past several years. So if you're a fan of exciting action anime, definitely look into Kill La Kill. The Madoka Magica movies are a retelling of the television series. They do leave out some substance, but they are better recap movies than many I've seen. However, if you have not seen Madoka Magica, I would still recommend going with the TV series first, but if you want something a little bit more condensed, something a little bit more economical, both in time and budget, then the movies are an ideal way to go for you. Ginno Saji, I'm sure that many of you may prefer to wait for a Blu-ray release, but for those of you that are fans of the show, and for those of you that prefer something a little bit more different, something a little bit slower paced, something a little bit more unique, Silver Spoon, from the creator of Fullmetal Alchemist, might be exactly what you're looking for. Majestic Prince, I don't have a lot of opinion on, folks. I watched a few episodes and thought that it was moderately interesting, but I say moderately because my attention was diverted by other shows. So, if you're interested in mecha, sci-fi type shows, for example, a show like Stelvia with fewer girls, more boy characters, then Majestic Prince is probably exactly what you're looking for. Love for Darkness is not really my taste, but there are a lot of fans out there. I, to my dismay, to my regret, have not picked up Mononoke yet, but among all of the new releases, this is the one that I'm most eager to pick up because it's economically priced and because it is such a unique, such a unusual show. Mononoke, for those of you that may not be familiar with it or may not remember it, is a spin-off from the Ayakashi Samurai Ghost Tales anime television series from several years ago. Mononoke is a very unusual, very eclectic visual show. What I might be able to most compare it to, for those of you that have been fortunate enough to see the recent film Short Piece, if you've seen the Oscar-nominated segment, then you'll be able to think that Mononoke is probably most comparable to that. So if you are interested in eclectic, very artistic, very off-the-beaten track, unusual anime, I highly recommend Mononoke because it fulfills those characteristics and because it's very affordable. While I haven't bought any new anime recently, I have been struggling to catch up with the slew of new anime that premiered this month. I have not yet had an opportunity to watch some of the potentially best shows of this season. For example, Zankoku no Terror is one that I'm expecting a lot from, but have not gotten around to yet. But I'm consciously, deliberately waiting on that one because I know I can rely on that one to probably be pretty good. But out of what I have watched this season, I can already pick a high and low point. I watch a lot of anime because I like being surprised. Every now and then, I find something that I did not expect to be as enjoyable as it was. Every now and then, I find something that kind of takes me by surprise. What did that for me so far this season is Gekkan Shoujo no Zomi-kun. If you're not familiar with the show, it's a series about a high school girl who discovers that the boy she has a crush on is actually an expert professional shoujo manga creator. However, part of the joke is the fact that even though he is expert at writing girls' romance, he has no familiarity personally with romance. So he has no clue that his new assistant actually likes him. The show is a good, solid, very witty, very charming romantic comedy, but mixed into that, it's also an interesting show about the making of manga, and about how manga is made, and about the process of developing story and revising and tweaking manga to get it to an ultimate professional publishable state. Now, I'm sure that many of you will say that Bakuman did the same thing. However, Bakuman was certainly aimed more at male shonen audiences than Gekkan Shoujo no Zomi-kun, which is aimed at shoujo audiences. And furthermore, I simply like the characterizations much, much more in Gekkan Shoujo no Zomi-kun than I did in Bakuman. However, if you liked Bakuman, then I'd certainly recommend trying out Gekkan Shoujo no Zombie-kun. This was a show that I really had no expectations for, positive or negative. It's a show that I went into almost entirely blind and found that I enjoyed it quite a bit. Similarly, I went into the first episode of Seirei Tsukai no Blade Dance with no expectations. I was, of course, like I always am, hoping to be surprised and pleased, but sadly, my reaction was the polar opposite. Partway through the episode, I thought to myself that this was a mediocre sword and sorcery anime. However, roughly halfway through the episode, it introduced a major cliche. Then a few minutes later, another one. A few minutes later, another one. By the end of the 25-minute episode, my opinion had declined to the point where I had really perceived the show as having subpar, not terrible, mind you, but certainly subpar animation quality, subpar production design, very weak background design, background art, and a sadly very, very bland, uncreative, very stereotypical and cliche narrative. So out of the roughly half of the new season shows from this month that I've watched so far, sadly Seirei Tsukai no Blade Dance is overwhelmingly the worst of what I've seen so far. Speaking of worst, I was also tremendously disappointed this week to learn that Viz Media has officially confirmed that the American Blu-ray release of Sailor Moon will not, strictly speaking, be true high definition. While Viz has said that they are taking great efforts to remaster it for high definition, what they have in a roundabout way confirmed is that they are not using high definition masters. The upcoming Blu-ray release of Sailor Moon will actually be a upscale, sadly. It will be the original 1992 animation, essentially technically blown up to fit a 1080p sized widescreen TV. Essentially, if you buy the limited edition Sailor Moon, then you'll be getting DVD discs, and then DVD discs blown up to fit on Blu-ray discs. So you're essentially buying the exact same animation twice. The exact same animation. It's the same master footage, just two different disc formats, at $80 per volume. So that is certainly a little bit disappointing, especially since the brand new current Viz Media Blu-ray release of Ranma Nippon no Ichi is mastered from high-definition elements. But, then again, many of you, and I have to admit, I'm frequently one of you, that doesn't really notice a huge difference between upscaling animation and true high definition. So I'm bothered much more in principle than in actual practice that the Sailor Moon Blu-ray will be an upscale. But for $80, I would really like to see a true high definition release rather than DVD masters put on Blu-ray discs. Well, anyway, that's my opinion, and as this is a news podcast, I wanted to make sure everyone knew that news about the upcoming Sailor Moon. The last bit of news that I'll share is the fact that while I'm pleased to be bringing you this week's AnimeNation news podcast, and I'm glad that you're watching, I will be out of town next week. Next week, I'll be presenting some live presentations at the Glass City Anime Convention in Toledo, Ohio. So, if you happen to be in Ohio, if you happen to be in mid-country, come out and find me. I'll be presenting a number of video presentations on unusual anime, obscure anime, I'll also be presenting, I believe, a presentation of the history of anime. I'll also be sitting in on some interesting panels, including a history of Gynax, and a little bit of a gripe session where us old fogey otaku complain about how things were back when we were fans, back when we had to trek miles through snow to buy our anime VHS tapes. So, I look forward to greeting you in person next week at the Glass City Con, and I look forward to being back here the week after for another AnimeNation podcast. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you next time.